Alright, this is test review 4. Hopefully you've already done this, or at least you're watching this because you are stuck and need to learn how to do something. Either way, let's go ahead and get through this. So, number 1, solve the equation using the graph. So when I solve using a graph, solve means I'm trying to find the roots or the x-intercepts. So simply I'm looking for the 2 points right here where it crosses the x-axis. Once I find those, my answer will simply be x equals -6 and 3. And that is it on that one. So the graphing ones are fairly simple. Alright, number 2. Solve the equation by using square roots. Okay. So to solve using a square root, the first thing I would need to do is to get the x squared by itself. Okay, so I'm going to move the 40 to the other side of the equation. So they cancel out on the left side. I'm left with 4x squared equals 9 plus 40 is 49. And then you divide by 4 on both sides. Well, I just changed color. Okay, so on the left they cancel out. I cannot reduce 49 and 4, but that's okay. So I'm going to scoot over here. I'm left with x squared equals 49 over 4. Now, I want to solve for x, not x squared. So my last step for this is I do square root. That gets rid of the square. So I'm going to be left with x over here. And remember, whenever you add an x squared, or no, I'm sorry, when you add a square root, so like I put the square root on there, it wasn't already there, I need to make sure I add plus and minus. Okay, now from here, I have a fraction. And you might be thinking, oh, how do I do a fraction? Well, it's very simple. On a fraction, I can just split this up and I can do square root of 49 on top and square root of 4 on bottom. Of course, square root of 49 is 7. Square root of 4 is 2. And that would be my answer for this one. Of course, on the on the test, because there's the plus minus, I would actually have x equals positive 7 over 2 and x equals negative 7 over 2. So you should have 2 answers on this question. So be careful with that. Alright, number 3. Find the square root of the number. Okay, so I have 6 squared of negative 90. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and focus on the negative 90 first, and then we'll do the 6 later because it's outside. So I have this negative that comes out as an I, and then I'm left with square root of 90. Now, remember, with the square roots like this, since there is no square root of 90, I'm going to split it up as far as I can. So this splits up into square root of 9, square root of 10. The 9 is square root of 3, square root of 3. The 10 is square root of 5 and 2. And again, the order of these, you could put the 10 then 9, like it doesn't really matter. Alright, so I got rid of the 10 and the 9, so I'm going to cross those out. I don't want to accidentally include those in my answer, okay? So when I do square roots like this and I break them down, remember you're trying to find pairs, so groups of 2. I have 2 3's. So that means I'm going to have a 3 outside the square root. I have no more pairs down here, so I have square root, and then whatever's left you multiply. So I have 5 times 2 is 10. So 3 squared of 10. Then of course I have this I and this 6. So times I times 6. Because everything outside you multiply, everything inside you multiply. Okay, so now I just do 6 times I is 6I times 3 is 18I. So 18I square root of 10. And that is my final answer for that question. Okay. Number 4, I just want to simplify the expression. So in here, the first thing you want to do is look for any negatives and distribute into any parentheses. That's the first thing that I would do. So these other numbers don't change just yet. So I'm going to rewrite those. Now I have negative times positive 21i is minus, 21. So really just the signs change in the parentheses, because two negatives make a plus, or positive, and then plus 7i plus 9. Okay, now I have all the parentheses gone. The only other thing I need to do is combine like terms. Now remember, like terms are all the i's, so all of these i's, and then the other like terms would be all of the numbers. Some of y'all are still trying to put all of them together. You cannot do that. So if I add all the i's, I have 15 minus 21. That would be negative 6i plus 7i, which is 1i, right? I hope. And then I add all the numbers. So I have negative 12 plus 15, or 15 minus 12 is 3, plus 9 is 12. So I should have I plus 12. Alright. And that was number 4. That one's not too bad, right? Mostly adding, subtracting. Alright, 5. I need to complete the square of the equation to find k of the form y equals a x minus h squared plus k. In other words, I just want to complete the square and find the new term or new number on the end. I'm just looking for my very last number after I complete the square. Alright, so on completing the square, first thing you're going to do is, since I have a number in the front, I want to divide by that number, because you don't want a number there. Okay, so I'm going to end up with that number in the front, parentheses, and then I divide each one. So 4 times 4 is 1x squared. 24 times 4 is 6x. Okay. And then if I'm labeling these, because I know some of y'all like to label, I'm going to have A in the front, B is right here, and then K, if you want to write K, I don't have a number, so it's just plus 0. That's K. So I have A, B, K. Alright. Now I want to do B divided by 2. That gives me B is 6, so I have 6 divided by 2 gives me 3. That number is H. And then of course you square that and you get 9. That number is C. So I have A, B, K, H, C. Okay? Now, I'm going to plug all of this into a formula that I use. So the formula that I have come up with this is A x plus H squared plus K minus A times C. Or if you want to do parentheses or just AC, whatever you want to do, just know that it's multiplying. Alright, so I'm going to plug all this stuff in. So A, let's go back. A is 4, so I have 4 parentheses, X, let's see, H is 3, so plus 3 squared. Our K, remember, was 0 because I don't have one. Or I do, it's just a 0, so you don't write it. And then minus A, again, A is 4, times C, and our C was 9. Okay, now I just kind of clean up the end over here. So I have 4x plus 3 squared plus 0 minus 4 times 9 is 36. And then of course 0 minus 36, that would give me 4x plus 3 squared, and then 0 minus 36 is just negative 36. Alright, so now go back to the question. The question is, I want to know k. Whoa, don't do that. Work. Oh no. Alright. So I want to know k. I want to know the very end number after I complete the square. So my very end number right here is negative 36. So my answer, or my k that I'm looking for, is negative 36. And that's it. Alright, that actually comes in handy because if you notice on number 6, I want to write it in quadratic form, so I have to complete the square the same as I just did. The nice thing is if I look at this, notice I have 4x squared plus 24x. Look at what I just started with a minute ago. 4x squared plus 24x. So I have the same two numbers in the front, except now I have a number, a k at the back. So I'm going to do the same thing, except I have a number instead of 0. So really what I'm going to do, just to save time, is I'm going to go ahead and take this entire equation, except I'm going to replace this 0 with this 16. Okay? That's all I'm doing, because that's all that has changed from that previous equation to now. Okay, so I'm going to write 4 and then x plus 3 squared plus 16 minus 4 times 9, again, is 36. So now I have most of the work done. I just got to do 16 minus 36. So I get 4x plus 3 squared and then negative or minus 20. That's it. And I'm done with that one. So those two kind of go together, because I just took number 5 just has a 0 at the end, whereas number 6 I just throw in another number, and that's the only difference. Alright, 7. Determine the number and type of solution of the equation. Alright, so this one, again, I'm going to label. I have A, B, and C. And for this, I'm going to use the determinant, which would be b squared minus 4ac. So all I'm going to do is plug my numbers into that. So b squared is 9 squared, minus 4 is always there, times a is 12, times c is 5. So now I just have to solve this. So I get 81 minus, for this one you can go in any order as far as multiplying. I'm going to do 4 times 5 first. So that gives me 20 times 12. Because now I can do 2 times 12 and add a 0. So 81 minus 240. Now, I don't really care what that number is. The only thing I have to know is that it equals a negative number. That's what matters. So, because my answer, my number, is negative, I'm going to have two solutions, right? And they're going to be imaginary. So two imaginary solutions. Now, if you don't remember the other ones, if my number was going to be 0, it would be one real solution. And if it's positive, it's two real solutions. Okay, and if you need to, you can go back and look at your notes, write that down. If you forgot, that's okay. So yeah, that's all I'm doing on 7, is using the discriminant and finding the number positive, negative, or 0. Okay? Alright, number 8. Now notice number 8, it has two things to solve. It has, I want to solve the left one and the right one using the same graph. Okay, well if you notice, my equations are the same. The only thing I changed was these symbols. Only because on the test, you don't know which one you're going to get, but you need to know how to write both. That's why I put both of them on here. Alright, so here's what I'm going to do. Let's go here and find our two critical points, right? The 2 points where they cross. So I have negative 6 and positive 3. Okay? Now on this first one on the left, I want to get greater than 0. Greater than 0 is above the line, right? That means that from that point, from negative 6, going this way is greater than 0, and from positive 3 going that direction to the right is greater than 0. So notice this is a split answer, right? A split graph. As far as I want the left and the right, I don't want that middle, because that middle dips below 0. I don't want that. So to write an answer for a left or right answer, I'm going to have my fancy bracket, right? X such that x is less than or equal to my left number. My left number is negative 6, or x is greater than or equal to my right number, which is 3. So remember, this one, if you forgot, is just the format x such that x is less than my left number, or x is greater than my right number. Okay? Then of course this symbol can be underlined or not, and same with this one. It just depends on what you're given in the question. Alright, so that's for one that's split left and right, which means when I look at the next one, this one is less than 0, less than or equal to. That would tell me that I'm from negative 6 going to 3. All of this right here is less than 0. So I went in between the points, not outside the points. So because I went in between, I'm going to write my 2 points, negative 6 and 3. And remember, you're going to use parentheses if my symbol right here is underlined. I'm sorry, parentheses if it's not underlined, brackets if they are underlined. So this one is underlined, so I use brackets, and that's my answer. That's it. So I gave you both greater than and less than, or at least the ones that are split and together. That way you can see both, because you'll get one or the other, but not both on the test. So you gotta know how to do both of these. Alright, number 9. Using substitution, move all terms to one side so the equation is equal to 0. Alright, so if you remember on this one, I'm going to take this whole thing right here and I'm going to replace it for y. So this y is going to go away. So really what I'm doing is I write 2x plus 8 equals, and then I write this entire equation or expression right here, x squared plus 5x minus 32. And then it tells me move all terms to one side so that it equals 0. So I'm going to take my 8 and my 2x and move them to the other side. So those all go away. That gives me 0 equals, that stays the same. 5 minus 2 is 3x. Negative 32 minus 8 is negative 40. And that's all I'm doing on this equation. I just got to move it all over and I'm done. Now I will use this later in the test, so you want to make sure you get this right, because it may come in handy. Alright, so 10, I want to use elimination to eliminate y correctly. Alright, so what do I do with that? Simple. I change, remember I'm multiplying all of these by negative 1, or in other words, I flip all the signs on, it really doesn't matter, but I would flip all the signs on the equation with the lower x squared. That just creates a one less step to worry about later on. So my top one did not change. I have y equals 3x squared plus 9x plus 30. On the bottom, negative y, negative 2x squared plus 7x, whoa, plus 30. Oh my gosh, stop doing that. Now I simply add all these, and my y's should eliminate. Y minus y is 0. 3 minus 2 is 1x squared. 9 plus 7 is 16x. And 30 plus 30 is 60. And that is my answer. I eliminated y, and that's all I needed to do. Now again, this might come in handy later, so these two questions I would definitely make sure you do correctly. Alright, only 5 more. Because remember, my tests are only 15. Okay, 11. Solve the equation by factoring. Alright, this should be super easy. We are simply factoring. We've been factoring for a while. So, let's go ahead and start. I do first times last. 3 and 28. Ooh, snap. I don't know that one. So let's try it out. Negative 28 times 3. Or if you're using a calculator, that's fine. 8 times 3, 24. 3 times 2 is 6, 7, 8. Negative 84. Nice. So, negative 84. And then I know I'm going to have 2 parentheses. I always do. That gives me 3x in each one to start out, because my first number is 3. That's what I want. Now you have to think, what multiplies to negative 84 and adds to negative 5? Now, just a little side note, just know on the test, all the numbers that I put in there, you should be able to do without a calculator. I did not make anything too difficult that a calculator would be required. So if you're good with math facts, you know all your math facts up to 12 by 12, this one shouldn't be too difficult. Now, if you're having trouble or you're still trying to figure it out, that's okay. Just for time's sake, I'm going to help. It'd be plus 12 minus 7. Because 12 times negative 7 is negative 84. 12 minus 7 is not negative 5. Oh, they're switched. I was close. I had the 12 and 7, so negative 12 plus 7 would be negative 5. So you got to make sure you get the signs right. And see, that's why I still go through it in my head after the fact. Even after I write it down, I make sure they multiply and they add correctly, because if you got the signs flipped, your answers will be exactly opposite, and that is not good. Okay? Alright, so from here, I'm just solving. I'm not trying to factor, so I'm going to go ahead and just set these each equal to 0 and solve for x. You can reduce these, but that really only matters when you are factoring and trying to find factors. If you're trying to solve, it'll reduce itself already, so you don't need to. You can, but you don't have to. So I move the 12, divide by 3, x equals 4. Over here, move the 7, and then divide by 3. I cannot reduce, so I leave it as a fraction. So my answer, or my answers, my two answers, right, you should have two, are going to be 4 and negative 7/3. Alright, not too bad. 12. Solve the equation using the quadratic formula. Alright, so first thing you want to do here is label A, B, and C. And if you forgot, quadratic formula is negative b plus minus square root b squared minus 4 times A times C. All of that is over 2A. Alright, now that I have ABC, I just plug those in. So negative b would be negative 9. Square root of b squared is 9 squared minus 4 times A times C, all over 2 times A, so 12. Cool. Now I just got to kind of reduce all this mess, right? Eventually I'll get some answers. So I have negative 9 plus minus. 9 squared is 81 Okay, now here, I have negative 4 times 5. Oh, I've already done this, haven't I? I feel like I did this one. Or at least three numbers. I don't know. Alright, anyways. Negative 4 times 5 is negative 20, right? Negative 20 times 12 is negative 240. I swear we did those numbers earlier. I don't know. Okay, I'm going crazy. 2 times 12 is 24. Alright, now I do negative 9 plus minus square roots. 81 minus 240, I don't know. So I'm going to flip them. So if I know it's going to be negative, I just flip the order and make my answer negative. So 1 from 10 is 9. 8 from 13 is 5, and the 1 just comes down. So negative 159. No, go back. Alright, so now, there is no square root of 159. I already know that. I'm going to help you out. Again, on the test, the numbers will be smaller. They should be easier to break down. But what I will do is I know, let me write it over here, negative 159. This negative will come out as an I. And just for fun, just so you can see, this does actually split up into 3 and 51. But since I can't split up 3 or 51, all that doesn't matter. So I'm left with this right here. So let me go ahead and write that. So I'm going to, let's see, change this to my answer. So I'm going to get negative 9 plus minus. Now instead of the negative 159, I replace it with the I, square root of 159, divided by 24. And that's it. Because I have an I cannot do anything else. I can't combine like terms, I can't reduce the fraction, I can't do anything. So I just got to leave it, and that's okay. That's how you do quadratic formula. There's only one of those on the test, by the way, so not too bad. Alright, so, look at this one. This one, solve using substitution. Luckily, we already did part of that. So that's 13. Let's go back to number 9. So number 9 is the exact same question. I did that on purpose. That way you already have some part of the problem done. It saves a little bit of time. I try to do that when I can. Because again, I'm seeing if you can solve it. But so I mean, you don't need to go back through and do the substitution thing again. So really all I'm doing is I'm going to take this whole thing and rewrite that on a 13 and then go from there, like solve from there, okay? So I have x squared plus 3x minus 40. Let's go back. X squared plus 3x minus 40. Okay, now I want to solve, right? So from here I can go ahead and factor. We've been doing that. So factored, first times last. I know I'm going to have 2 parentheses, and my first x is just x, so that'll make it a little easier. So I need 2 numbers that multiply to negative 40, add to positive 3. Again, these numbers are fairly small, so you should be able to get plus 8 minus 5. Okay? And then now to solve, because I'm solving, I don't want to factor. I'm just using factoring to find the answer. I set each equal to 0 and then solve for x. So I got my 2 answers, 5 and negative 8. And that's all I'm doing on there. So see, as long as you get 9 correct, and you can use it, if you know, assuming you get the same one, hopefully you do, you already have part of the problem done. You just factor, solve for x, and you're good to go. Alright, we got 2 more, 14, 15. Alright, 14, kind of the same thing here. 14, if I go back to 10, same question, right? So again, I reused the same question on purpose to save a little bit of time. So I wanted to get x squared, 16x, and 60. That's what I'm going to write, and I'll go from there. Alright, so I have x squared plus 16x plus 60. Okay, so here, from here, I still need x, right? And I want to solve by factoring. Oh man, okay, real quick. See, this is why I like to talk things out. I forgot to finish. My fault. See, this is something you got to make sure you don't do on the test. Don't finish a question. Of course, on the test it's multiple choice, so it'll be easier. I only got half the answer. My bad. I don't know thanks for whoever pointed that out to me. Hopefully you weren't sitting there scratching your head like, man, is he gonna, did he forget? I need to let him know. Okay, you let me know. Thank you. So, totally my fault. We found x, right? We have two x's, but because this is a y equals, I gotta plug it I would plug it into this equation. Alright, oh, I almost forgot. I'm so glad I remembered. But see, it happens to me too. Because sometimes you just get into a problem and you aren't thinking about everything you need to do because of whatever, and you forget. I forgot, no big deal. So I'm going to plug these in. So I have y equals 2 times x. So the first x, negative 8, plus 8. Y equals 2 times negative 8, plus 8. And then, of course, negative 16 plus 8 is, luckily, negative 8. Wow. So our first answer is, here's y, here's x, so I have negative 8, comma, ooh, both negative. So there is one of my answers, and then I plug the other one in to get my second answer. So y equals 2 times 5 plus 8. Y equals, not 30, wow, 10. Ha, ha, ha. Okay, 10 plus 8, so y equals 18. This will give me x and y, so my second answer is 5, 18. So, my apologies, but luckily I caught it before we moved on. Those are my two answers that I would pick. Now, again, the test, because it's multiple choice, you will see a bunch of points like this, so hopefully that will let you know or remind you, okay, I found x, I gotta plug it in and get y. Alright? Okay, now let's go to 14. I'm gonna do the same thing. So I'm gonna factor, solve for x, and then plug in both x's to find two y's. Almost identical question. Alright, so I multiply first times last, gives me 60. I know I'm gonna have two parentheses. My first x is just x, so that goes here and here. Now, I want two numbers, right, that multiply to 60, add to 16. That would be 10 and 6. Okay, I solve for x. Notice how once you are really good at doing this, or at least are comfortable and know the steps, doing it is actually not that bad. So set each equal to 0, solve for x. I have two x's. I need to plug both of these in and find y. Now this one, it doesn't really matter which one you plug into, so it's up to you. I'm going to use the one with the smaller numbers overall, which in this case would be the 2, 7, and 30 instead of the 3, 9, 30, so I'm just going to do that. So I have 2 x squared, negative 10 minus 7 times negative 10 minus 30. So 2 times 100 plus 700. Or no, not just 70. Whoops. minus 30. So 200 plus 70 minus 30, 270 minus 30 gives me 240. Sweet. So my answer for one of my answers, I have x is negative 10, y is 240, negative 10, 240. That's one answer. Now I plug it in my other one and find the next one. So my next one is what, negative 6? Okay. Minus 7 times negative 6 minus 30. So 2 times 36 plus 42 minus 30. 72 plus 42 minus 30. Was that 114 minus 30? Gives me, what, 84? And so I have negative 6, 84 is my second answer. Alright. Whew, okay, a lot of work. I mean, kind of not really. If you have a calculator, hopefully you do somewhere at home. If you're taking this at home, you can just type these in on the left. When you plug it in, you can type it in, gives you the answer right away. So it's a little easier, although that's not too bad doing it by hand. Alright, we have one last, two final questions. It's 15, but notice I have a left and a right. Again, I want to make sure that you can do both, the one that's together and the one that's separate, like we did earlier with the graph, except now I don't have a graph. So let's go ahead and get these done. On 15, no matter which one you have, because you aren't going to know right away, you do want to factor. So I factor, and I have 96. I know I'm going to have two parentheses, like always. My first x is just x that goes in both, and I need two numbers. Multiply to 96, add to 20. That would be 12 and 8. And I just need to solve these. Of course, if you know the shortcut, just use that. That's fine. It still works. But for those that need all the steps, that's okay. Some people just, it helps. So I'm going to do it. Alright, so I have negative 12 and negative 8. Those are my two critical points, right? Alright, I'm going to go ahead and just show you the shortcut way on this, the graph, because to me, it's much easier to see because I can actually see it. You're not trying to think of it through. You're not having to plug stuff in because you might plug something in wrong. So I have a graph. Okay. My first number, my A, is positive, so my graph goes up. My 2 points are negative 12 and negative 8. And then my last thing I need to focus on is this symbol right here. That tells me I'm less than 0, or I am this part of the line only right here in between. So that means, since I'm in between, I have my 2 points, negative 12, negative 8, and I'm going to use brackets or parentheses. Well, because this symbol right here is not underlined, I use parentheses, and that is my answer. Yay. See, that wasn't that bad. Again, as long as you're good at factoring, this is fairly simple. Okay, so the last one over here, I factor the same way. Except this time, if you have a negative in the front, I would just switch all the signs. Okay, so I have x squared. Well, let me change that color. Sorry. Got x squared minus 20x plus 96. Okay, I'm going to factor this. So I do first times last. Same thing, right? Like the exact same thing. So I know I have x plus 12, x plus 20, not 20, 8. Wow, see, I'm thinking ahead. 8, it adds to 20, right? Okay, same thing. I know this is negative 12. I know this is negative 8. All right. Now, I'm going to draw my graph. I don't want that over there. Okay. So I draw my graph right here. Because my original equation, my a, was negative in the very beginning, this line's going to go down. I still have my 2 points, negative 12 and negative 8. Only this time, I went less than 0. Well, I had that last time, but either way, less than 0 would mean I went from this point this direction and from this point this direction. So I went the left or the right, so my answer is split. Okay? So remember, if you have a split answer, I'm going to do fancy bracket x such that x is less than or equal to my left number, or x is greater than or equal to my right number. And that would be my answer for this one. So on the test, you will either have the one that's together in the middle or the one that's separated on left or right. So you have to know how to do both because you don't know which one you'll get. And that is the test review.